Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area of the USA. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and what we've decided to talk about tonight. So tonight we'll talk mostly about reimagining recovery. Reimagining recovery, that's a fascinating title, and I'm interested in getting to what that really means. Reimagining recovery. And my guest this evening is Molly Dumars. Molly Dumars.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And a few words we've had before the show started, I think it's going to be quite interesting, and because of what you've given me and how you look. So as you know, the show consists of two major segments. In the first segment, the Who Are You segment, I talk with my guests a little about who they are personally so that we might get a bit of an appreciation of why they say what they say. In the second segment, we'll talk about reimagining recovery and whatever. How are you feeling right now?
I'm pretty good.
You
Yeah.
not nervous?
I'm a little nervous.
Well, why is it I'm always more nervous than my guests?
If it makes you feel better, I'll say I'm terrified.
Okay, thank you. Okay. If I would ask your best friend, who is Molly? What would be your best friend? Molly is. What would she say or he say?
Multitudinous.
Molly is multitudinous. Wow, man. What does that mean?
I've got my friends use big words, I guess. Just you know that I'm large. I contain multitudes, and I feel like I embody that.
It's kind of tricky because you look like you're.
Well, that's why my personal motto is, I am tiny, I contain multitudes.
Okay. I feel better, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's my plan on it, yeah.
Okay, and when and where were you born? Can I ask you where you were born or when you were born?
1985, and Corvallis, Oregon.
You're Oregonian too?
Yeah.
Wow, man. Why were you born?
Why?
Yes, why? Always ask me the same question back again.
You know, I don't really subscribe to the whole fatalistic sort of thing, but in the spirit of that, I would say to fulfill my potential, and that changes often, what that might be at any given moment. But the common thread throughout most of my life is helping others.
Okay, that's why you were born.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So in years, how old are you? I don't do dates very well. You're 85?
32.
32. Wow, man. Anything significant about your racial, national, or cultural heritage that the viewers might be interested in? Or just plain old white bread?
Yeah, plain old white bread, you know, and I don't really have much of a connection to my family because of a traumatic past, and so there's a disconnect there.
Sure, you bet. Yeah. You have a religious preference, or did you ever have one?
I would say I'm agnostic. Yeah, I was kind of raised as an atheist, but I actually kind of joke with my friends that I was raised with the religion of cynicism. That's how I was raised, was cynicism.
I like you already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an agnostic, a skeptic, I got a whole bunch of names. Even an atheist, because atheist is a pejorative, you know. So I'm an atheist, that's good, yeah. But I was a Roman Catholic kid, was an altar boy for years. and went through all the ritual of First Communion and all that stuff. And then I discovered that Catholicism was a hoax. Pardon me, that Trumpian language, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your formal education, you say a little bit about that?
If you don't mind, I have a little more to say about the spirituality thing.
Of course, please.
Yeah. It's something that's come to me later in life, but I've found a lot of peace in spending time in nature and finding the ritual of having a sit spot is what I call it, and just finding a place where you sit day in, day out, not, you know, once a day for, you know, however long, but you go to that place again and again and just watch the seasons and watch the changes, and it's been really transformative to do that.
How long have you been doing that?
Off and on. I try to do it as much as I can. But I've been trying, you know, off and on for many years.
Many years.
Yeah.
What happens when you do that? What doesn't happen? How do I phrase that? I think about meditation myself.
No, it helps me with my sense of continuity, because it goes into like something that I struggle with because of my trauma is my sense of like continuity seems very disjointed, you know?
Yes, I think so.
You have like a fractured sense of self, but like sitting in the same spot, a part of everything, connects me to something.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Your eyes are pretty blue, although you realize.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're tender-hearted too, and thank you for letting me see you.
Yeah. I think it's important to be vulnerable. I think not enough people are, so.
Yes, yes. So many people are so protected.
Yeah.
And they deprive themselves of experiencing the totality of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
And to be vulnerable. Yeah. And your formal education.
I am a high school dropout.
Me too.
Yeah, by choice. At the time, I called it unschooling.
Mm-hmm.
It was a conscious choice. I was continued. I wanted to continue my education on my own terms, and that continues to this day. So, at my work, I'm lucky that I work alone and I can put my headphones on and listen to lectures all day, and go on Wikipedia, spend hours going down the rabbit hole, all that kind of stuff. I love it, so it never stops.
What's your IQ?
I don't know. I don't know, and I have a lot of misgivings with the whole idea of IQ and how we gauge intelligence. And
I do too.
Yeah.
Yes, all sorts of intelligences. Yeah, and it's some basic that has been accepted for so many years. It gives me some place to start with because I'm sensing what you're about. And I may give you feedback later on about how I see you in terms of IQ and all the IQs you can think of. In sensitivity, a high IQ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And your other education, is there any way of characterizing that in a few words? Your other education, or it sounds like an ongoing process?
Just constant curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that goes back to jump back to the religion thing a little bit.
Of course, wherever you want to.
I'm in recovery. I tried AA for a while, and that you're supposed to have a higher power, and even if you're agnostic, you have to choose something. So, I chose as my higher power my own curiosity, and that's what got me through it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And your full-time work is?
I co-own and operate a seismic retrofitting company.
A seismic refitting?
Retrofitting
company.
Yeah.
How'd you arrive at that?
I went through a program called Oregon Tradeswomen. Wonderful, wonderful resources. They have programs, the pre-apprenticeship program available for free. Any female identified folks can come and learn the basics from construction math to how to write a resume. We go out to all these different job sites, try out different skills. Like we went to the Carpenters Union, we went and did roofing, we did built vegetable gardens, all sorts of stuff.
Is that a manifestation of your curiosity?
Yeah, it worked well for that. And so, yeah, and after I got out of that, I did all sorts of stuff from there. So, but that was like the springboard, and it's definitely life-changing.
Well, how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing construction stuff for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah.
And you got your hands in, so to speak, and you've done some jobs?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That can't be. You're such a tiny little woman.
I'm sorry?
That can't be. You're such a tiny little woman.
It helps in crawl spaces. It really helps in crawl spaces.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the time I'm in crawl space, so.
I actually do work.
I do the work too, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Do you have a partner? Boyfriend, girlfriend, a husband, or wife, or whatever?
Yes, I have a partner. He's watching here. He's with me today.
Oh, good. So he's going to watch this show?
He's in the studio.
Is he in the studio?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I thought I saw a stranger out there. Yeah, well, he's fortunate to have you, I can tell right now, yeah. You have children?
No.
Oh, in political persuasion, or you're left, right, or center, or what?
Leftist.
Leftist?
I could be more or less specific, but...
whatever you want to.
I tend towards, even though I hate the term anarcho-primitivism, the idea that civilization as it is not sustainable, which shouldn't be that much of a radical idea, but...
It isn't sustainable. That's saying, these things you say mean a lot. So why isn't civilization as it exists today not sustainable? Global warming or what?
Well, the economy we have depends on constant growth. Constant growth on a finite planet, is not something that's possible.
Yeah. The Anthropocene is coming to an end. The sixth die-off.
I don't know all about all that, but the idea is that, and I'm not an extremist, or I take from these ideas, I borrow from these ideas,
yes.
But some of the work of Derek Jensen or John Zertzan have been influences. But the main thrust of it is we can't keep going the way we're going.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll be a while before it catches up at my age, because I'm 91 this year, And I'm going to be watching from someplace, I'm not from where, is how it's unfolding. And because of my age, I've been thinking more often now about my life ending. Mm. And you could appreciate that because of how I sense you are and your sensitivity. So I tend to do more of that now than I did, say, 10 or 20 years ago. So that's why I talk about the Anthropocene and the next die-off, that sort of a thing now and then. But I'll stop talking about that to illustrate I follow my thinking. What's the difference between sympathy and empathy?
If you look to the root, both have pathos, which means feeling or suffering, depending on how you look at it. I think M is in and sim is with. So to me, that feeling in feeling is like being in the thing with the person. You're in it with them. You feel the same things they feel.
Yeah.
With feeling is maybe like you're just holding, you're there, but maybe you're just holding their hand. I don't know.
Sympathy versus
Empathy.
You know, interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting a sense of how smart you are. Yeah, you're a good guest.
Thank you. You're a good host.
Thank you. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations. You belong to any of those that are worth mentioning for the viewers?
On that front, I've spent a lot of time in isolation from pretty much everything. I'm just getting out, and this project, which brought me here, is has opened up a whole new world. So
sure.
But yeah, so there's lots of things that I had wanted to be involved in, but the isolation was so strong.
You've been involved in so many things. Does it ever end?
Yeah, I have been extremely busy, too. And I feel like this is my activism. This project is my activism, so.
And any particular organizations, civic organizations, or political organizations that you belong to? You belong to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party?
I mean, I'm technically a Democrat, so I can vote in primaries, so yeah.
Okay.
But I wouldn't consider myself a Democrat.
Neither me.
Yeah, so.
I'm a democratic socialist, if I must assume a label of some sort. Yeah. How about any people from the past or still alive today that you particularly admire or look up to? Any names come to mind for you? Political or social or whatever that pop into your mind?
Buckminster Fuller would be one.
Yeah,
it's just, he was also an autodidact, taught himself things, and, I don't know, his mind was just so expansive.
Are you self-educated?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a brain, Buckminster Fuller. Any other names come to mind?
I always freeze when somebody asks me, but I'm sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I can list a couple of mine. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
And a few names like that. And now all the names I know I've skipped, and I've heard so many names now that I'm drawing a blank myself. So.
Yeah, it's like there's too many. There's too many.
Yeah.
But yes, some of yours are mine too. So.
What does doing good mean? Just some provocative questions to get what I can get from you.
I'm stuck on the idea of good. I think binaries are mostly should be thought experiments, not reality.
Yes, of course.
So I think it's much too complex to. I guess we all have to. We're all doing our best. I don't know. are we?
Objectively, I'm thinking doing good means to do things or be with fellow human beings or with other living creatures in a way that enhances or invites them to be what they are and to appreciate their being alive by whatever method that you can do. I want to have the results of my being with you as you go away having appreciated my genuineness, for example, and my sincerity in my humanity and my frailties, which I try to hide sometimes.
We all do sometimes.
Yeah. A couple of questions about mainstream media. What do you think of the mainstream media nowadays in our country particularly? Is it left or right or what?
The left or right, like who runs it?
Left or right. And the information that the mainstream media puts out for us to consume, by and large, is it left or right, or like Fox News, for example. That's a liberal method of getting information out. So versus the alternative media like Democracy Now, MSNBC, or Street Roots, any of those organizations, ACLU publications and stuff. To look at the media overall and the methods that we use to get our information that we base our thinking on. Is it more left or more right, generally speaking?
I mean, my answer is going to be biased because I watch the shows that I watch for a reason, you know.
What do you watch? Just go a couple.
This is one of those things where I just blank when you...
Okay,
yeah, sorry.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Do you watch CNN?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever watch Amy Goodman, Democracy Now?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. And of course, I stay away from Fox News.
Yeah,
as an example.
It's if you want to feel enraged, it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And sometimes you do, you know.
Okay. What's most important nowadays in our existence, in our being here, alive and on this earth and experiencing life? What's most important to consider right now that's important compared to other things that are least important?
Sorry, the most important
consideration is staying alive or having a global warming, for another example, somebody else might say, or the die-off of living things, or even politics, or what's going on in Washington, D.C., just whatever pops into your mind.
I recall, I'm trying to remember this quote. It was this environmental scientist saying, I used to think the problems that we're facing are global warming, on and on, but what we really need to what we really need to face is the problems of greed and corruption, because that's the root of those.
Greed and
I wish I could
corruption.
remember the better. I wish I could remember the quote better.
And you are doing fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's straight.
All right.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Maybe I want to do one or two more questions like this.
Okay.
Philosophical, general stuff, or whatever. What's wrong with America today, generally speaking? And I'm going to ask you what's right with America, generally speaking. Let's go with the right. What's right with America first, and then you can tell me what's wrong with America. One or two thoughts. I've had a lot more years to dwell on these kinds of things.
It's just one of those things, you know, how you say, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter.
Mm-hmm.
It's
There's so many things, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. We'll skip that.
Well, for both answers, there's so much wrong and there's so much right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I could probably sorry.
Don't be sorry for who you are.
Okay.
You're delightful.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So let's take a break, and then it's about time for us to go into the second half of the show where we'll have all of these questions. And we're going to have to go for 3 hours in the show because it takes a little while to get through these questions. And I'm silly sometimes, you know. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. For you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about what it is we're talking about. And we're talking about reimagining recovery. Reimagining recovery. I'm still curious about that. And we're going to get into that pretty quickly here. So, and my guest this evening is Molly Dumars, D-U-M-A-R-S.
Yep.
I like that name more. All right. So you ready?
Yeah.
What is reimagining recovery? What does that mean?
Well, it's a project that I founded and started. It's become a community now. Eventually it'll become a movement, hopefully. But right now it's a group of people trying to reimagine what recovery can look like and, you know, go beyond what's out there and just go back to the drawing board, really, and see what works, what doesn't, how can we move forward and update this to the current, you know, climate of everything. So
recovery from what?
This is kind of the radical idea, is that everybody's in recovery from something. Mm-hmm. So anybody can come, whether they have a diagnosis or not.
A psychiatric
diagnosis,
yeah.
Or and because these are life skills, coping skills that anybody could use.
Sure.
You know, how this all came about was I was hospitalized about 9 months ago for suicidal ideation, and I improved. I was discharged, but at that point, I was met with a very frustrating decision. Like, do I go to addiction treatment or do I go to mental health treatment? Mm-hmm. And in my price range, there weren't any integrative options, you know. So
money, huh?
Yeah, yeah, money, and it's roadblock after roadblock to get the kind of care that I actually need. And but I did go to Providence's outpatient program, their intensive outpatient program, and they do really good work there. And it was actually my 5th time.
This is in Portland.
This is in Portland, yeah. And you go from morning to the afternoon. You do classes about learning boundaries, sleep hygiene, self-care, DBT skills, all sorts of stuff. And the idea was like, I was sitting in a class about asserting boundaries and wondering, why doesn't everybody learn this stuff in school? Like, it's so essential. Like, how many traumas could be avoided if we had more, you know, knowledge about how to treat each other, you know?
Okay. Reimagining. So, yeah.
I'm getting off track, but so anyways, we're a group of people in Portland. We meet together and we talk about all sorts of topics in recovery. There is no like prescription. It's not like you follow these steps and then you'll be cured.
It has to be personal, huh?
It has to be personal. So we talk about different modalities, different approaches. Some of the examples of classes or groups, I never know what to call them, events. One is coming up is Cognitive Distortions 101, binaries that bind us.
Yes.
We're going to have one about challenging toxic positivity and the cult of happiness. Is that okay? We're going to have one about the upward spiral, locus of control, agency, and empowerment. I'm going to have one about trauma, memory, and the brain. And a lot. I've been doing 7 of these a month lately, so.
How long does the class start?
The class group, whatever you want to call it, it's 1.5 to 2 hours. Yeah.
And you can spend an hour or 2 hours with any one of those?
Yeah.
And the contributors to the discussion are all the people in attendance in the class?
Yeah. How it is now is there's kind of one facilitator, and that's been me. But eventually, the idea is to build a website that will become a library of lesson plans, discussion questions, worksheets, suggested reading, journal prompts, all sorts of stuff like that to help anybody teach their own class. You know, so this thing can spread and expand.
It's sort of like a peer learning situation?
Yeah.
So if you've been there, people can tell that you've been there.
Yeah.
And you're not just in intellectual land.
Right. Right. It's It's not just in your head. It's when you're in the same room with a bunch of people who've been through the same things as you, it's a whole different experience.
How do they find you?
Right now, the easiest place is to look on Facebook. I do have a website, but there's not much on there right now because I can't find the time. But I'm working on it. But we've got a Facebook page. It's pretty active. Reimagining Recovery. Same. You just look us up on there. And we also have a private group where people can talk. Yeah.
Any, for want of a better word, any data on success of what you're doing? People have you had people who recovered enough to know there's a difference between now and when they started with you like 6 months ago?
I've gotten lots of good feedback, yeah. I've gotten nothing but good feedback. It's not, I mean, it's, everybody's on their own journey at their own pace and everything. I wouldn't say that, I have had people say that, like, just even finding a space where that feels safe, where we can talk about these things with people who understand it, is life-changing.
Yeah.
You know, so even that alone is so much. Like, because I know when you're in deep depression, like months and months of isolation, just getting out and being with somebody who gets it is like incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And as I'm listening to you with my full attention, occasionally I'll flash back, I got a lot of years behind me, and think about events or something going on at that time in my life that take me back to how depressed I was and how sick I was, for want of a better word. And I'm still paying full attention to you, but I'm able to flash back, and occasionally when it occurs to me. And I'm kind of re-experiencing, like, I told Kevin the story about when I was a preteen, and I stood over the kitchen sink as the rest of the family, I'm the baby of 12, was in the kitchen laughing and having fun, and I was assigned the task of washing dishes. And I was always being the baby, the one who got the dirty chores doing. And I was just so depressed and so sad, terribly sad. I had the butcher knife with the tip pressed at my navel, praying for what it took to plunge it in and end it. And I remember that. I've never forgotten that. But I've gone beyond that. That was an awareness. And little things like that, depends on who I'm talking to, is how much those come back. And I've reimagined and moved on from there. And I doubt that I'll go to that degree of unhappiness or sadness again, because I worked so many years in treatment and psychotherapy and like that. And occasionally I go back to my own shrink and get a tune-up, because it never stops.
Yeah.
Still relearning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we ask you some more questions?
Sure.
Okay. How is it different from other recovery groups like AA, Refuge Recovery, SMART, etc.? How is it different, your movement?
Yeah, well, the groups are centered around a certain topic, or, for example, the ones I gave you, one we just did for mindfulness for trauma survivors, you know. So it's not like a program. It's not like you do this, this, and this. We offer this knowledge to anybody who thinks they could need it or benefit from it. The other thing is there's crosstalk. It's more like a conversation. Yeah. Among friends, and everybody has a chance to contribute or not contribute if they don't want to. But they're also bringing their own experiences and their own like research too. Sometimes, like, they'll come with, oh, I read this book and this is related to this and whatnot. Yeah. Another thing is that we recognize that the personal is political. So we look at ways in which things like oppression impact our overall wellness and our ability to recover. And so it's taking the focus off of the individual and looking at it more holistically within the context of the culture.
Broadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And figure the contribution of the culture, the system, versus your own internal workings, based on your own learning when you were 3 and 4 and 5 years old. Yeah. My fundamental thought is how much human-to-human contact, do you hug each other?
With consent, yeah.
Of course, with consent.
Yeah, no, but like we have a particular way of asking,
Of
just
course.
so it's very clear, yeah.
Yes, I remember now. I was in so many groups through the years.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, like touching is amazing. I mean, can be so healing, just a hug.
Yeah, from someone who's sincere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the trips we go through to get around to asking, maybe some of us are even afraid to ask, and to make it clear with our presentation that a hug would be helpful for me.
Yeah.
I would feel better if you hug me. Even doing away with putting a lid on the possibility of it being sexual, you can even overcome that. But to be hugged,
yeah.
Don't get me started.
No, I agree. When I was in the psych ward, there was no touching to people. Like, it was against the rules, you know. Yeah. And I always thought that was, I mean, I get it, you know, why, but like, it's so healing. It can be, you know.
Yeah.
And it was a long, that was one of the hard parts about it, just not having any physical touch.
Mm-hmm. And I thought, when I saw you over there, when I first saw you, you're my next guest. And as a ritual, I get a hug. And then in that initial hug, I get a sort of sense of how you are. And you were vulnerable. That's because something about me, I guess, says, because along the way, we're using our brains and our neocortex to consider and evaluate, but there's something else going on, spirituality or whatever it is, that comes into play. I got sidetracked. So, you got something else to say now, or should I go to the next question?
Next question.
What? Me? Where and when do you meet?
Tabor Space in Southeast Portland every Monday. That's kind of our first and regular group. We also have ones at the Q Center in North Portland, 1 to 3 p.m. every second and fourth Sunday.
Tabor Space, you said?
Tabor Space, yeah.
T-A-B-O-R?
Yep.
Where is that?
It's on Belmont, like 50.
In Portland?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Q Center is on North Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. And who provides that space, the meeting place?
Q Center's free, and then we also have a space at the Alano Club Portland. And Alano Club Portland is actually paying for our space there and also paying for our space at Tabor Space. They've been very helpful in wanting and supportive of this project.
Why do they do that? Why do they support you?
They are really progressive, and they really see the value of my approach, and I was not expecting them, you know, honestly, I was not expecting them to reach out to me, but I am so incredibly glad that they did.
Because of incredible you.
But yeah, they've been amazingly supportive.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Why is offering a diversity of approaches to getting healthier and weller important? Why is offering a diversity of approaches? Diversity of approaches meaning your approach versus the medical model, versus the physical body approach and
the social model of disability.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. For just to speak to that, some people do find the medical model that works for them. Some people do prefer looking through the lens of the social model of disability. I tend to think of through that lens, but everybody would be welcome. To explain what that means, I guess, would so the difference between the medical and the social model of disability is where you locate the problem. So say you have a person with I'm blanking on the words. Accessibility needs, and they reach, you know, a step that they cannot navigate. The medical model would say the problem exists in the person. The social model of disability would say the problem is the stairs there, basically. So it's, another way of saying that is a lot of the problems associated with having a disability, be it a psychiatric disability, a physical disability, a lot of the problems associated with that are not inherent to that condition. It's society's reaction to us and how they treat us and discriminate against us and misunderstand us.
You got to overcome that.
Yeah.
And look at your own internal workings.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, we have an ongoing group called Confronting Ableism that talks about all these kinds of things. It's
How
kind
do
of
you
like
come
an
up with all
offshoot.
these different classes and approaches?
Well,
Are they your own creation, or everybody contributes?
it's all been me. To be completely honest, right after I got out of the hospital, I was still in a hypomanic episode, and so I would just like sit there and write, and I'd had like wrote down like 400 ideas for classes. So, and now they've slowed down some. Maybe once a week, every couple of weeks or something, I'll get another one.
What a mind you've got. And through that mind, you have a heart for want of something else going on that has you doing the work you're doing. And it's a marvelous package. I got to think of better language. So shall I continue?
Sure.
Yeah. What do you do to be more inclusive and accessible to all? I think we've been talking about that a little bit. To be more inclusive and accessible to all. That's a large order.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, we do things like, because we're a neurodiversity club, like some people have sensory processing issues, you know, so we try to be cognizant of that, like not having fluorescent lights or whatever. Like, we ask people, what can we do? And it's like amazing to some of these people that we're asking that, like, because that's not common practice, you know. So we ask people what they need is one thing. Another way that we try to kind of, it's the harm reduction motto, like meet them where they're at, you know. I believe in the stages of change model. I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sure, but like, where was I going with this? My mind tends to, that's why I have to have 3 of these.
Of course.
With me at all times.
Of course.
So
loving and holding, is that an essential, or the essential ingredient in the relationships that you're having with your fellow reimaginers?
Yeah.
It's a sensing, it's something beyond what's going on in the neocortex. And it's a look, it's something in the eyes, the windows of your soul or whatever. And
something happens.
There's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And we're losing track of what's going on anymore in our culture nowadays. As Kevin and I were talking about looking at the TV screen and the cell phones, and we're losing something in what humanity is about, simply being. Yeah. And occasionally I get a visit with somebody like you, even if it's in this context, and just this brief period of time, I will take away a lingering thought about you and what's been going on with us, because of how we are as two fellow seekers, if I may. Yeah. And I'm enjoying you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Shall we go one more time?
Yeah, sure.
Can you give some examples of the types of classes you've done that already? How did it start? How have your own life experience informed the project? Let's talk about that for a bit. Your own life experiences.
Yeah.
To the extent that you want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I did say I have a really, not to start at like that particular place, but like having had a very traumatic past has made me a more empathetic person, and made, when you have been to the depths, like, and you see other people in the depths, you want to help them out. So that's definitely one thing. I also, one of the skills I have, because of how I grew up, I learned to be a very good diplomat. And so that is useful in these sorts of situations. Basically being my parents' marriage counselor. So I learned to do that, as, you know, unfortunately, as the way that came about, you know. Can I start over on this question? Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Shall I wait for you? Okay. Your own life experiences. So you've had some life experiences that memorable isn't the word, because they linger in your memory, and they're affecting how you are relating to life in the world today. It's like, for me, and a couple of times since we've been just visiting, I thought of a couple of things when I was in trouble and what it was like. And I lost myself this time too. It was my turn. So shall we go to the next question?
Sure.
Neurodiversity Club. What is neurodiversity?
The basic idea is that all variations of the human genome are as legitimate as any other, and that whether you have autism, ADHD, psychiatric disabilities, any variation of the way minds think is legitimate and should be respected as much as any other. That's the basic premise.
Neurodiversity.
And, you know, diversity should always be, you know, celebrated. Not just because, not just for the sake of it, but because in complex systems, diversity breeds resilience. So diversity is important, like, for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm aware we have another hour of questions left, so but we're running out of time. We have 5 minutes left, maybe about 3 minutes left for you and I to chat for a bit. But I wonder, with all that's going on and what you're about here, and our discussion and all that kind of stuff. So, if you talk to the viewers right now, what would be your message, things that you want to say to them about what happened on the show tonight, or anything else at all, about your own personal life, or anything that's you've got 3 minutes. So look at the camera. There's your camera right there.
Okay.
Go ahead, talk.
Okay.
Hello, viewers.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. For the month of April, we are going to do a workshop called The Upward Spiral, Locus of Control, Agency, and Empowerment. This is in particular importance to me because this was where my own recovery turned around. Is that Oregon Tradeswoman program that I went through, talked to.
Oregon Tradeswomen?
Yeah. that empowerment changed my life around. Once you feel like you have control over your future, which you lose when you have depression, you know, when you lose when you've been systemically oppressed for years, which you lose when you've been violated. We're going to talk about how to gain that back and how to increase your own personal sense of power.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We're going to stop now before they yell at me.
Was I a little too intense?
No, you're very excellent. Excellent.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
And a couple of public service announcements here. I got so fascinated I lost track of time to learn about The Nation. That's a left-wing publication for many, many years in this country. And it's beautiful. It talks about left-wing stuff that nobody else talks about. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, I'm protective of the civil liberties. I've been a member of the ACLU for many, many years. And the Alliance for Democracy, that's an organization I belong to. It's a left-wing organization. There's a website to go to learn more about the Alliance for Democracy. And to learn to end corporate personhood, we got to end corporate personhood to show that corporations are not persons and money is not speech. Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching. And remember KFC, please. And not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. To you too. And you too. And you too, her boyfriend. Thanks again. And we'll see you next time.